Coming up today, we react to your Jose Ramirez reaction, which will certainly lead to your reaction to our reaction to your reaction. It's really just an endless content glitch. I mean, hasn't that been the ESPN model for years now? So I think we need to step in and take advantage of this while the getting's good.
Okay, I'll say a hot take, and then you react to it. And my hot take will probably get some athlete mad. So then we react to the athlete's reaction. Then we debate whether the athlete's reaction was fair. Then we debate what you debate about it. And we debate, and then we debate, and debate, and debate.
That debate will then trickle back to the athlete. He'll certainly have a reaction to the reaction, and then we can react off of that. And at the end, we can claim that he shouldn't even care what we think, and we start again. Makes total sense to me.
Sports media in 2026. Love it.
Welcome to the Selby's Godcast. I'm TJ. That's Zach. We are curmudgeon-y as we could curmudgeon today. Of course, as you can
weather.
See, it might be. It's
Can I say something about that?
The fact that my kids haven't been to school in like 3 years. I'd like to send them back to school if that's possible.
Do you think in the future your kids will tell their kids, back in my day, we walked uphill to get upstairs to play on our snow days because we never went to school?
The big blizzard of 2026.
We got yelled at, you and me, a bunch of years ago because we spent time on a podcast talking about the weather. I vividly remember this because I've made sure to steer clear of that topic ever since. Can today be an exception? I have, and I'll tie it to baseball. Can't remember the last time I was this excited for spring training. This is brutal, man. Like, pick your lane. It can be super cold. There can be tons of snow, but can we not have both? Can you give us like a foot of snow with 30 degrees? Or can you give us sub-zero temperatures with no snow? Like, what is my dog supposed to do? He can't take a step outside.
Find a spot in the house, clearly.
What does a postal worker do? What do the garbage people do? Like, this sucks, and it has me just dreaming
Knock over my mailbox. That happened.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It has me just dreaming of spring training.
Yeah. And it helps, like, very, very little bit. It helps when I'm warmed by Jose Ramirez deciding he wants to be here. This is where he ultimately likes to spend a lot of his time. And we reacted initially to the news that Jose Ramirez signed his 7-year extension, however you want to phrase that, but 4 more years beyond the time that we thought he was going to be. And what I thought was interesting, Zach, was there's a feature on YouTube where you can summarize the comments, because sometimes you don't want to dive into there all by yourself. You want somebody to summarize it for you and tell you, as opposed to reading them all yourself. I actually do read them all myself. That's probably why I am the way that I am. But it put 3 different bullet points here, and I thought it was perfect. This perfectly summarizes, I think, how the fans feel about it. Number 1, as you can guess, overwhelming appreciation for Jose Ramirez. Very frequently, it says, viewers are extremely positive about Jose Ramirez's extension, celebrating his loyalty, character, and status as a team legend, with many advocating for a statue in his honor. Absolutely, that has been the overwhelming majority of the responses for Jose. Is that pretty much what you have seen?
That makes sense, yeah.
The second bullet point.
What would be the counter argument?
Well, maybe we'll hear more about it.
Okay.
The second one, strong desire for roster improvements. Parentheses, frequently.
Sure.
A significant portion of the comments express frustration with team ownership and management, urging them to spend more money and acquire additional talented players to surround Jose Ramirez and improve the team's chances of winning. You have a Hall of Fame track player on a severe discount wanting to stay with you. Take advantage of it. Don't just let this time pass you by and keep the payroll super low and not surround him with talent. Yeah, that would be a crime, right? I think that's what that's saying.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Third one. Curiosity and concern regarding contract status, and this says occasionally. Some viewers question the timing and financial implications of the extension, specifically regarding Jose's age, the new years added, and whether the deal frees up immediate payroll space. Those are, I think, everything that I just read was fair. Those are the things that you're left with, I think, today, a couple of days after. You get over the initial excitement of the Jose Ramirez announcement, and you wanted to give everybody credit because you're feeling really good. A couple days later, then you're starting to wonder, okay, how does this impact payroll? How does this, in the near term, how does this benefit the team? How does it in the future maybe mitigate some of the risk that could be there with some of the deferrals? These are things I think about hours, days after the initial announcement.
So I think the overarching answer is that, like, what I can, can I here put on my Chris Antonetti hat, and I would say something like, while we're absolutely thrilled to secure Jose Ramirez's future in Cleveland, and we appreciate Mr. Dolan's commitment to keeping a fantastic player with this franchise, as it pertains to our overall budget and payroll, it doesn't demonstrably change how we approach the off season, and how we look at potential external additions as it pertains to, impeding the development of some of the young players that we're excited to watch. You need me to translate that now? Here.
Yeah, can you get the throw up out of your back of your throat there?
Yeah, so what I think their stance is, and will be, and always has been since the dawn of time, is one doesn't have to do with the other. It's not like they've got the flexibility to add somebody. I don't think that was an issue before this. And even if, the one thing that the deferrals do is they make it so that they can spin this kind of how they want, right? There's the simple way to explain this, and it's not even simple, is that he gets $15 million a year up front, right? Each year he's going to make $15 million base salary, and then $10 million gets deferred, and he'll get that $10 million far into the future, starting a decade after each year of the contract. I think I explained this the other day. You get each $10 million installment is going to be paid over 10 years, $1 million a year. So, the first year of that he'll get $1 million, and then in the middle of this deferment period he'll make $10 million at some point. So the complicated thing is that you have to file away that money in advance. It's not like David Blitzer writes a $1 million check on whatever it is, January 1st, 2036. That has to be put in an escrow account. And I think the date, so for the $10 million in 2026, you have to put the certain percentage of it in escrow by July 1st, 2028. And there's more technicalities. It's really confusing, and it's also the amount is, you have to, I think, come to an agreement on what the amount is, because the way that the players union sees it is different than the way the league sees it. Anyway, point is, if you and I are looking at this, we're saying you're paying this guy $15 million in 2026. You were going to pay him $21 million, so you're saving $6 million. So shouldn't that free up even more money to go sign Eugenio Suarez or trade for Shohei Ohtani or whatever you're going to do? And they're going to say to that, we didn't need the $6 million to go do something. It's more about who fits, and is it the right person who's not going to take away at bats from Chase DeLauder and George Valera. And you can see the expression in my face, TJ. I'm saying this and I'm hating every word of it. It's the end of January, and it's not like this is new, where some young hotshot prospect popped up out of nowhere. You knew what the situation was at the end of last season. Also, I think pretty highly of Cleveland's front office, and that these guys are smart. And I can't think that they're naive enough to just assume that these people who they were the ones putting out, like, we ranked 28th in runs and 29th in average and 29th in on base and 29th in slugging. And they're also saying, like, it's been great winning 2 straight division titles, but we don't want division titles. We want a championship. We're not satisfied. This has not been a success yet. Like, I can't hear all that and see that they've done nothing and think that they're naive enough to believe that just, hey, here's some dudes, some young kids who have been injury prone. They're going to fix it in their rookie seasons. Like, come on. That's not, like, and I think highly of DeLauder, and I really like Valera, and I think Bazana is going to be better than, the people who are already writing him off think. That's not enough. That can't just magically solve this. I don't think that they believe it can too, and that's why it just doesn't add up to me. Something's off here.
We got this question in the Discord from our pal Chip Chipperson.
Oh, great!
And I thought it was interesting. Directed it at you. You never answered it, so here we are. Here I am cleaning up your mess of you not.
He should have tagged everyone, and then I would have seen it.
He tagged you, so whatever. If you gave Antonetti and Chernoff truth serum and asked them why they haven't made moves to address the offense this winter, what do you believe their completely honest answer would be? I find that interesting. When you remove the Antonetti head, the speak from the organization that has been ingrained in his DNA, and actually ask him to be a human being for once and explain it, it would result in a different answer. But probably, I don't think it'd result in a bad mouthing of ownership or anything to that degree.
Yeah. I think their answer would be that it's hard because, like, the corporate speak that they use and the nothingness that they say, like, it's a fine line to walk here. Like, I think there's some truth to the things that they spout. I think it's valid to say you want DeLauder to take this and run with it this season. And I think publicly you always want to be careful of, like, just, you don't want to say anything that's going to make a young player think that they don't believe in you, right? And so that's why they're always so careful. That's why they're always going to undersell, and they don't care if they overdeliver or underdeliver. They're always going to undersell. They're always going to make you think they're not going to do anything, and usually that's what happens, right? It's better than promising. That's why I think it was so jarring to everybody in that room at the end of the season when they're like, yeah, 28th in runs? Can't happen. Like, division titles are cool, but they're not the ultimate goal. Because it's like, and I'm always the one saying, like, watch what they do, not what they say. But that's as forthright and open and honest as I've heard them in a long time. So the truth serum to me would be partially payroll. Like, the payroll was $100 million at the beginning of the year last year. You're not sniffing that, right? Part of me thinks they feel like if they can let some of the kids play early in the season, they'll have a better idea of exactly who fits at midseason. Now, that's a convenient excuse. That's kicking the can down the road. And we've seen certain years where they have addressed that, where they've addressed it really well. Andrew Miller, Brad Hand. We've seen some years where they've tried to address it, and, like, Lane Thomas worked at the right moments, but overall, otherwise, like, didn't give them what they had hoped. And we've also seen them sit on their hands. So, it's telling me that that's the plan doesn't guarantee that you're actually going to deliver. And also, you might not be in a position to be contending and to add the missing piece in July. So, I don't know it's a great question. It's difficult to answer because I just still, like, I come back to, like, something doesn't quite add up. And I know, like, there was hesitancy from ownership to, like, they're scared of 2027, and they're scared of, like, they want as little on the books uncomfortable as possible for the transition of power in the organization. And all that can be true, but it doesn't, like, you can make a trade that doesn't necessarily add anything crazy to the payroll. There have been free agents who have signed who, and again, like, this payroll's going to wind up if they don't do anything. Like, if they get out from under Class A's deal, like, it could be like 65, 70 million. Like, what are we doing here in the year 2026? You're going to be case study number one during the lockout of what's wrong with all of this. So, long-winded way of saying that it's super complicated and nuanced, and I don't have a great answer for it, because I think there are partial truths to some of the stuff they say. But the bottom line is, like, none of this has quite added up, because it can't just be payroll, because they've already they've cut 30 million. They just saved more with the Jose deal. They're already starting the process of, like, pinning certain things to David Blitzer. So I'm not buying any of that, and I'm especially not buying it when they have been blatant about, the offense wasn't good enough. We're not satisfied. And also, like, if you're leaning on these kids, and I know DeLauder got hurt, but you took your sweet time with him last year until he did. And if I'm supposed to believe that this guy's the savior, then he should be on the opening day roster, should he not? Because he probably should have been up last season before he got hurt. If that's what you believe, if that's the level to which you believe in him. And, like, you can't be wasting time with Bazana. Like, as soon as he shows he's ready, he should be up. So that's like, none of, like, you tendered Nolan Jones and you're going to give him a chance to win the center field. Like, this doesn't quite, none of it makes sense.
Makes me wonder just how bad 2020 was behind the scenes, if they're this scared about 2027. And they're one of the few, if not the only team that's operating with this degree of being nervous about it, if not more. Now, when it comes to the truth serum, I think there'd be a funny exchange where they would say before you injected them, and they'd say, well, we don't want to block opportunities for our young players. Something we've heard before, something they just said like a week ago. You'd inject them, and you say, all right, tell me what you really think. And they would say, well, we don't want to block opportunities for our young players. And you would say, what the hell? Does this not work? Is this serum, is it bad? Did it go bad? Have we waited too long? I actually think they believe that. I think to a big degree they do. And I'm not mad at them for thinking that way. We've said it, heck, we said it earlier in the offseason. Don't sign somebody that is just like a retread, 35-year-old trying to hang on, another Carlos Gonzalez situation, or
Paul Goldschmidt fits this, Starling Marte fits this.
Guys that they might be, whatever. They don't move the needle enough for me to say, well, yeah, go ahead and sign them and bring in this player to block opportunities for a guy that's probably already just as good, and you could just play them. Why even waste our time with this? We both agreed on that. Make it a significant upgrade that actually moves the needle, that does make you significantly better in some way. Otherwise, just play the kids. I'd rather see C.J. Kafis than retread 35-year-old outfielder that, who cares? This is their best days
fine,
or
but
3 years in the past.
Do we agree even if you do that, you choose that route, there's still room for an established hitter?
Exactly.
You can go trade for Brendan Donovan or something like that.
And I think what they would eventually say to make you believe that the truth serum actually does work is that they have to operate here with they have to be very precise with their moves. If they're going to make their money stretch the way that the ownership is allowing them to. And so that means if somebody doesn't fall into that category, they're just going to have to be comfortable with not making the move. Instead of making the move to make a move that doesn't even improve the roster at all, if we don't see a significant upgrade up there and we're passed by, we can't afford it, we can't make it work, then we're just going to have to pass. We're going to have to pass, and we'll just have to lean on the younger players.
Yeah, we've said it before. They're the type of front office that has, like, a list of guys they like, and then there's a cutoff, right? There's two buckets here. Guys we like, guys we don't. And if all the guys they like, they don't acquire, they're not just going to take their top choice from the guys they don't. They would rather just do nothing, right? They have values assigned for all these guys, and if they don't align on that, that's it. It's not just, all right, we'll settle for this guy instead. So for better or for worse, sometimes the best move you make is the move you don't make. Like, they probably dodged a bullet not trading a prospect haul for Jesse Winker back in the day, but it's. I feel like the offseason was. It's always a disappointment. I remember having a conversation with someone in the org in October, and we were just casually chatting about like expectations for the offseason, what they need and stuff. I remember this person saying like, yeah, we're going to get to opening day and everyone's going to be disappointed in how our offseason went. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that sets my expectations. But there are levels to that, right? Like, I think Jose Ramirez's extension bought them some level of forgiveness almost, like, or at least delayed it. Like, that doesn't make up for the fact that you've done nothing to fix what was a dreadful lineup. Like, I get it. But you can feel a little bit better just about the stability. Like, think about the alternative here. There was like an ugly path. 2026 takes place. Whatever happens, happens. 2027, who knows how much of a season there will be. And this is Cleveland, right? And I know Jose Ramirez has a no trade clause. And I know that he's the face of the franchise. And you certainly wouldn't want to trade him. But we've also been in this position before where he was on the doorstep of getting traded to Toronto or San Diego. And like, let's say it's 2027, you play half a season and, it doesn't go well or something. And you're thinking like, do we see what he wants to do? Like, do you want to sign an extension here? Can we make it work? Otherwise, like, do you want to be traded? I don't know. Like there was just like,
I'm not saying having those conversations. You don't even want to be thinking about it.
Correct. And Jose had made it clear that he wanted the security. He wanted to like lock this up. That's why this, like, I think some people were like, really? Like, he still had 3 years left on his deal. Yeah, but in a market like this, that's when it starts to get a little, like, you start thinking about the future. And from his perspective too, like, he would have hit free agency at 36. And he's probably hoping to sign like a 2-year deal somewhere at the end of his career. So this is, I mean, obviously, like, it's still a below market deal. And we talked the other day about like he might be your typical 39-year-old former All-Star at that point who's, DHing and struggling at the plate. And it's like, I don't think that should matter because he's only going to be making $15 million.
Well,
and
yeah.
Fans are going to be
think
lining up to see him. And so my point is, this does a lot of good. And it doesn't answer the questions of why you haven't surrounded him with talent, but it at least gives everybody a chance to like exhale from venting about the offseason for a minute, because this guy's going to be here for a long time. And so there's still an opportunity to build around him. And you don't feel that sense of desperation necessarily, like, and believe me, like, I want them to make win now moves, and like they should be doing everything they can to win the World Series in 2026 because they have a really good foundation. But at least it's not like you have to do that because Jose's not going to be here in a year or two.
Right. You should feel the pressure because you have this player, not because our time is running out on this player. My pushback on the last year or maybe years of this contract to be painful, and he's not going to be the same player and you're still going to be paying him like he was. Okay, fair. I think there's a pretty strong reality where that happens. But how does that change how they've been the last several years anyway? They don't spend this money on anybody but Jose Ramirez. Look at the roster the way that it is now. In the future, like, what makes me believe that instead of paying Jose Ramirez this $25 million in your head, what you're paying him salary or whatever it actually is in terms of how it applies to the salary in that given year based on the deferrals, Are they going to spend that on somebody else? When have they ever done that in the history of their franchise? They never have. They always operate this way, where they have like a little bit of payroll on some existing guys, and then the rest of the roster is filled out by these young players. So, oh my God, in the future they might be operating the exact same way that they are right now. At least in this scenario, they've been paying Jose, and the guy that has earned this ability to earn this sort of money. They're paying him the contract, as opposed to it not going anywhere and it just sitting in whoever is owning the team at this point's pockets, whether it's Blitzer, whether it's Dolan, whether it's some combination of the two. At least in this scenario, somebody is getting the money that has been worthy of it. And in the next several years, you have removed what you said. The conversation about, they need to potentially at least have conversations with Jose about moving him, whether or not he would get rid of that no trade clause. And we need to speed up our timeline because he's leaving in 3 years. That's all been taken off the map. And so we're going to be here in the same position where they don't spend any money. At least in this scenario, Jose Ramirez has been locked up. Otherwise, like, what are they going to be spent? I don't think that would make a significant amount of difference in, let's say, keeping a guy like Travis Bazzana. If he goes on to become a superstar player, he's going somewhere else. Like, let's operate in Realityville. At least Jose wants to be here and he's getting the money, as opposed to not spending any money and still running the team in the exact same way. Nothing is going to change in my mind.
Well, and that's the thing. This guy's now signed 3 extensions totaling 16 years, $271 million. That's no player would sign that contract if they were a free agent at the age of 24 when this started. So you've had this gift from the heavens of this perennial all-star signed to this below-market deal, and that'll be the case from... I mean, how about this? This is like my favorite fact. TJ, when he debuted, 20 years old, basically a pinch runner in September of 2013, wearing number 62. You know who one of his teammates was? Jason Giambi. He was 42 at the time, wearing a golden thong, born in January of 1971. And when Jose plays his last game in Cleveland, presumably, at the age of 40, 2032, you know who one of his teammates is going to be? It'll probably be some kid who right now is sitting in their sophomore year of high school English class, learning about Pride and Prejudice or something. And you're going to be playing with Jose Ramirez one day. You're going to be playing with a guy who played with Jason Giambi, who was born 40 years before you. Like, it's crazy. And that whole time period taking place in Cleveland, he would be the 19th player ever to spend 20 seasons with one team and never play anywhere else. 19th ever. Of the previous 18, 17 are in the Hall of Fame. The only one who's not is Mel Harder, Cleveland pitcher, who spent 20 seasons in Cleveland and is the only player to have his number retired by the franchise who's not in the Hall of Fame, and they did it because he was such a beacon of stability here. So you're talking about super rare air here, and it's crazy. It's cool. I also think it just like sets a good example too. You know, it probably made Tanner Bybee breathe a little easier. Bybee signed his extension. He knows Jose will be here. Probably other people too. Like maybe it helped, I don't know if it'll help like Stephen Kwan negotiations, but I do think you can mention that when you're talking to him and be like, hey, we have Jose locked up forever. We'd love to pair you with him and keep you here for a while too.
All right, let's shift gears here. We could continue having this conversation forever, and I think we will. To your favorite projection system, OOPSY.
Oops.
It's one of the newer projection systems. It's been out for, now this is its second year. And what makes OOPSY different than some of the other projection systems is, as they term it, they don't rely as heavily on past information. It's more so about the metrics that they believe are quote unquote sticky, like the highly predictive StatCast metrics. We're talking about bat speed, barrel rate, stuff plus, things that don't take quite as much time to stabilize as like looking at a career. I might say I need 3 years of a career before I believe his numbers, whereas opposed to looking below the surface, you can sometimes in several months feel pretty good about the evaluation of a player. So OOPSY uses that data, and so it provides us a different look at certain players. Now, if I tell you that it's going to reward players for their bat speed for their stuff plus, that also means players that do things unconventionally might get lost in the shuffle, which is why it would be worthwhile to go through some of the projections for Cleveland this upcoming year. And I want you to tell me why it's either wrong or right. Tell me why OOPSY is wrong, why OOPSY is right. And we'll start with Jose Ramirez. First number I pulled out for Jose, 23 home runs is the projection for Jose. So is OOPSY right or is OOPSY wrong? And why?
OOPSY's wrong, and the reason is he hit 24 home runs in 2023, and everybody assumed it was the beginning of the end. They assumed decline was here. He was in his 30s. Power had dipped each of the previous 2 years, really 3 years if you think about the shortened season in 2020 and what he was on pace for. And then he hit 39 home runs in 2024. I think until 23 would be his lowest. That would match the 2019 season for him. And that's the lowest since 2016. So I can't predict this guy is going to just have a super impactful drop-off in production until it happens. So that's wrong. Oopsie, indeed.
I think it's worthwhile to keep in mind what I said. It's heavily reliant on things like bat speed, and Jose's never been this darling when it comes to some of the eye-popping StatCast metrics. And his bat speed has always been below league average, at least since we've really had the ability to track it. Now, it hasn't changed drastically. It's kind of where it was a couple of years ago. This past year, it was slightly better in 2024. He always swings harder from the right side of the plate, which might tell you something about why he has been in recent years maybe more devastating from the right side of the plate as opposed to the left side of the plate, which is a slightly slower swing. But it's not about bat speed. That's not how this guy generates his power. It's all those pulled fly balls, the ability to know which pitches he can drive and finding them and pulling them over the fence. You're not going to see tons and tons of the opposite field, whoa, sort of power off of his bat. That's not how he succeeds. So I'm not going to be surprised that a guy that is now, getting another year older, that projections that are heavily based on things like bat speed, which typically don't get tons and tons better even if you work on it, it's going to say that it's going to drop off a little bit. But I'm with you. I'm going to say that they're wrong. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here for a guy that crushed 30, 2 years removed from 39, and is still transforming his body and finding ways to remain strong as his career unfolds. I think he's still going to be able to get to top 23. Absolutely.
Just talking with a few colleagues about sort of the direction that hitting is going. We got away from the 3 true outcomes, and I know in Cleveland, the emphasis was on contact, right? And we looked at the Tyler Freemans and Owen Millers of the world and wondered if that was the future. And someone brought up Geraldo Perdomo with Arizona and how he's got just absolute elite chase rate, whiff rate, walk rate, strikeout rate, bottom level barrel rate, hard hit rate, exit velo, bat speed. And he was an MVP finalist. Had a great, well-rounded season. And they were saying, okay, is that the blueprint? And some people brought up Cody Bellinger and how he drastically cut down on his strikeout rate, started making more contact while trying to make hard contact. Alex Bregman did some similar things. I brought up Stephen Kwan and just how he's kind of the Perdomo mold. Perdomo's like an optimized Stephen Kwan. He's Stephen Kwan if Stephen Kwan could hit 20 home runs, which a couple of years ago, if he didn't miss 40 games, he might have. But who does this profile describe to a T? Who is the actual trailblazer here? It's Jose. It starts with an innate contact ability, But we've seen like Luis Ariz the last couple of years. It's great if you can make contact on anything, but are you making contact on the right pitches so that you're not just rolling over to second base? And so that means elite plate discipline and swing decisions. And I think that's the key. If you can unlock those two things, yeah, you'd love to make a ton of hard contact and all that, but it's not, you can still be successful without that. I think that's what Quan is trying to figure out still consistently. I think that's what Jose's mastered. I think that's part of why Jose, we talk about how he's underrated, and maybe at this point he's only underrated by the metrics and the projections. And in OOPSY's case, I think they're wrong.
Chase Stillwater, they have him for a 728 OPS. Right or wrong?
I can't dispute that too much. You know, he's technically never faced big league hitting in games that
Pitching,
count.
yeah.
Pitching. That's also above league average. So I think that's, I'd probably set it a little higher, but I think that's true enough.
Would you be pleased, and that's a 104 WRC plus, by the way, would you be pleased with the projection of 118 games, 511 plate appearances? Would that be a successful first lengthy look at Chase Stillwater, a guy that has the biggest question on the board being his health?
It would be, and I would be even more excited about those numbers if he spent the first couple weeks in the minors, and it's not that he missed 40 games with injuries.
Yeah, that's true. I do wonder how much does a management of load matter for a guy like him throughout the year? How mindful are they going to need to be of that? Maybe he can find his way into center field some of the time for Cleveland. But I think you're going to want, in games where he does play center field, I think you're looking for opportunities to get him out of center field late in the game. I think DHing some days is certainly important. You also have Jose, so you're going to want to make sure you're finding days for him to DH as well. And on top of that, do you find days against tough lefties to sit him too?
Yeah, maybe.
It's a worthwhile. Other players, we would get frustrated when Kyle Manzardo's on the bench. We get frustrated with Stillwater. Like I kind of get why you have to be very mindful of how much of this guy you're going to actually see.
Yeah, you know I hate talking about this stuff. I need like a medical expert to explain to me what he's done that has put him in the position to suffer one injury or another. And how can you go about avoiding that happening again? I'm not smart enough to know that. You would think that they've put a lot of time into. Well, that's the thing. It's like maybe the answer is no, and
yeah.
So then you're just guessing. Like, how do you know this is the day? You know, you're just trying not to step on a landmine. How do you know? Is this the right day to give him a day off? But if there's no rhyme or reason to it, it's like
yeah. Well, I think you're taking a day off the board. This could be the day, but we're not making today the day because we sat him. So it's like someone blindly just throwing darts, and you're spinning them around and throwing darts, and I hope I don't get hit by the dart. So, hey, for one of those throws, why don't you sit down?
Yeah, I mean, he would get hit by the dart. Yeah,
we're not gonna throw it this time. We'll come back tomorrow and think about throwing that dart. Kyle Manzardo, just mentioned him. 107 WRC plus for Kyle Manzardo. Right or wrong?
I think that's wrong. He was at 113 last season. I think the walk rate can go up. It was 9% last year. I think he can be better in that arena, and I think that'll prop everything else up a little bit. You know, if he can exhibit some more patience, he's going to get more pitches to hit. So 113 was a great first building block. I think 107 is selling short.
I think this may be determined by how much opportunity do you give him against lefties, because if he's playing more against righties, I mean, last year he was a 119 against just righties with an 83 against lefties. if he's playing more against everybody, then yeah, that will probably drag down the WRC plus total. Because even if he's playable and passable against lefties, I don't think it's going to be good enough that it's overly inflating that number. So you could say that there's some excitement in just seeing him play more and getting an ability to get better against left-handed pitching. But also, if he is still going to be the guy that you find days to sit him against tough lefties, I have to imagine it's going to be better than a 107.
Yeah, it's also, he could be better than 119 against righties. So he's so far down the list on like guys I'm worried about not taking a step in 2026. I think he'll be perfectly fine.
I agree. This one is interesting. Middle infield, 3 candidates here that I would imagine we're going to see lots of, especially the first two. Arias is a 90 WRC plus, Rocchio is an 89, and Bazana is an 88. I just thought that was hilarious. They're right in line. 90, 89, 88. Are they right or wrong to put those level of offensive expectations on those 3 players?
Gabriel Arias, he has had basically parts of 3 seasons in the majors. 73, 70, and 77. What is changing? What is he doing differently that's going to get him up to a 90?
Well, remember what I said about OOPSY and what they prioritize.
I know.
And what this guy, raw skills, has some things below the surface that keep coming, but keeps you coming back to the table.
The exercise is me to explain why they're wrong or why they're not. I just there are players that I can imagine making substantive changes and or just leaps for whatever reason. And with him, I have just seen the same guy each year. So I'm going to say that's wrong. Rocchio is one who I feel like there's more in there, but I also feel like I'd be a hypocrite if I gave him the benefit of the doubt and didn't give Arias the benefit of the doubt. Because I don't have a strong reason for why I feel more confident in Rocchio. I don't know.
Well, it's the same story.
The one thing that carried him in 24, I say carried, he walked 10% of the time. That was such an encouraging trait. And then the cut in half last year. And the strikeout rate remained 20%, so nothing else really changed too much. I feel like 80, getting from 77 to 89 shouldn't be too much to ask for him. Whereas like Arias' profile is just, I don't know how you're getting there unless you just run into 15 more home runs somehow. I don't know. I'm going to say wrong on Arias, close on Rocchio. I don't know on Bazana. I like to think that the floor is high enough with him. I think they're wrong on him. Because he's a guy who should walk a bunch. He should have a decently high floor where I feel like he's in the 90s at least. So I'm going to say wrong, right, wrong. Or wrong, right, wrong.
Well, I'll ask you to put them in the order you think. But one thing about Rocchio I was thinking about is you mentioned the 10% walk rate, and last year is 5.7. The thing that he did benefit from in 2025 that he had no benefit in 2024 was better batted ball luck. 245 for a guy like this is not a guy that's going to hit a ton of balls. Like if you're thinking about a guy that only hits balls in the air, then you're going to run a lower BABIP because it's easier to field those balls as opposed to when you're Stephen Kwan and you're hopefully just spraying the ball all over the place. And even if you hit a 55-mile-per-hour squibber over the shortstop's head, that could result in a base hit, right? A lot harder to defend. Last year he ran a 281, which feels like that feels absolutely repeatable. Nothing about that feels crazy. There could be years where that's over 300. So if he has the same batted ball luck but takes some more of that patience from 2024, and the strikeout rate didn't change or anything like that, so keep the 40 points of batting average, but add a little bit of on base ability to take that from a 290 to like a 310. Now we're talking about the guy that can get into that neighborhood of what they're projecting. That is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, can I just see a middle infielder who has a 700 OPS? Like, is that too much to ask?
That'd be nice. Put him in order. Put him in order then.
Bazana, Rocchio, Arias.
Okay. I think I at this point would go. I think I'd go Rocchio, Bazana, Arias.
I'm always intrigued by who's behind the mystery door. Who haven't I seen yet?
Okay. Well, we've seen plenty of this guy, and some projections say more beneficial things about him coming up in 2026. Bo Naylor. They have him for a 98 WRC plus.
Whoa. That's interesting. So the last 2 years, it's been 74 and 85. We have talked about this several times. Worth repeating. He made a decent-sized jump in walk rate from 7.5% to about 11%. 11% walk rate is good. That's really good. He cut his strikeout rate from 31.4% to 23.9%. Really good. Really good. And yet his numbers didn't, like he hit 195. His on base percentage was 282.
Aren't these the things you would start to tell a hitter to do? Like, do these things, and it's going to result in better outcomes for you. And it did not for him.
He was great in September again. I've seen this movie before. I don't. It's like you're watching a show, and there are like certain things happen or that flash on the screen, and you're like, they're trying to tell me something, but I don't know what it means. What does it mean? And that's where I'm at with him, where these are such encouraging trends, but it hasn't translated yet. Yeah. I mean, it translated to being 11% better overall than he was the year before, but he was really bad the year before. And he's still got a ways to go to get up to league average, but OOPSY thinks he can do it. So I'm going to say it's wrong. I'm going to say the safe bet here is probably like 90. But in saying that, I think I still believe there's a path for him to be a solid catcher where he's hitting 20 homers. He's got a decent walk rate. And yeah, like he's never going to hit 280, but can he hit 220 with 20 homers and an on-base percentage of, I don't know, 310? Like, you would take that. So that's what you need him to get to. I just don't quite understand. I mean, maybe the BABIP being 222 plays into this, certainly. What's the path to getting there? How can he take the positive steps he made last season and then just get over the hump here and get closer to league average?
The other thing he did that you would start to tell a hitter to do is pull more balls in the air, and he did that the best rate of his career. He's pulling the ball in the air. He's what you talked about with the whiff rate and maintaining a good chase percentage, and the walks are up. How does that not result in something better on the surface, something you can believe in? And the thing that's interesting is you mentioned the batting average on balls in play, but like that, for the contact that he had, it made sense. It was a 201 expected batting average last year, and it just tells me that when he's hitting the ball in the air, it's just the balls that are easy to defend. And I know he had a slight increase also in the pop-ups too, which are basically automatic outs. You could throw those into strikeouts if you want to, because the defense is going to turn that into an out. So it's just about trying to optimize the fly balls that you're hitting, I guess, and trying to hit them a little bit harder. I don't know, but there's enough there.
His hard hit rate wasn't very good, and so maybe he needs to just hit the ball hard more often. But I don't know. I liked some of those trends are great, and so it's just like I want to know what's and this is a good question for spring training. Like, if that was step 1 and step 2, what's step 3? Because step 3 probably determines whether you can cut it or not.
Stephen Kwan, 8 home runs and a 2.4 WAR. I think I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, that seems disrespectful. Here's his WAR by season. 4.7, 3.0, 4.2, 3.2. Why 2.4?
Well,
I know why.
I'll tell
I
you what.
understand how the metrics are going to lead you to that conclusion, but
Yeah. Well, it's also a guy that, like, let's say he's a league average hitter, and you are, which, okay, puts you in the neighborhood of being a league average WAR player if you're contributing league average defense as well, right? So you'd be in the neighborhood of 2 wins just based on that. It's tough for a projection system to take someone with elite defense that creates that much value on that side of the ball and just say that, well, that's going to continue. It's tough to build an entire WAR resume just based on your ability to play elite defense. It's going to regress that some, just based on, the law of averages. But we operate with some knowledge of knowing, no, this guy is a great defender. So let me take what you think about his being slightly better than a league average offensive player, and I'll add that into being an elite defensive left fielder. And just based on that, I'm going to give him another significant bump in WAR total. That's where you get to that lower 2.4 being
no,
that
and
number.
I get that. It's also why I'm not just going to look at projections and let that run my life. There has to be some context to this as well, and unless he gets injured and misses a decent chunk of the season, I don't see it. In 2024, he had 4.2 WAR and he missed 40 games. So that's the standard that you're trying to get back to if you're him. And he's got to figure out a way to stay healthy, and as you've pointed out, to stay durable and to not break down. And it's great if you're playing. He played 156 games last year, but how many of those games was he feeling great? So he's the way he was talking at the end of last season. I think this is a guy who's going to be awfully motivated to have a year closer to what he did 2 years ago, where his WRC plus was 131, than last season when it was 99. What that means, I don't know, but I would take the over on 2.4 WAR. The home runs, I don't, I that's almost like choice. Like, I'd take the over just because he's gone 14 and 11 the last 2 years, and he's proven that if he gets a fastball on the inside part of the plate, he can pull it over the fence. But I think for him, it's more just like whatever you have to do to be as productive as you can be. If that's, the 1 year it was a concerted effort to hit for more power and to have more aggressive swings and hitters counts. But we've seen stretches where this guy just goes nuclear for a week and he's just slapping singles all over the place, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
I don't expect you to have a big take on this, but here is another projection system that is saying nice things about Jonathan Rodriguez. Add it to Zips, add it to Steamer. Steamer had him at a 104. Here's OOPSY with a 109. So all of these projection systems are saying, hey, this is not a nothing ball player. At least offensively can bring you something.
I don't have a strong take.
I know you wouldn't. These two together, because it's been a kind of a conversation point for us all throughout the offseason and really before the season ended. Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams. They have Bybee at a 3.86 ERA and Gavin Williams at a 3.75. Don't get too caught up in the ERA being exact a 1-to-1, because these things often look a little higher than even sometimes you would think. But just those two being that close, do you think they got that right?
Yeah, I think these guys have been like attached at the hip since they were drafted. And they're coming up, and they were just kind of on the same timeline. I mean, I've told the story a million times about how in spring training they were pitching on adjacent backfields, and everybody in the organization flocked out there to watch them pitch, and they had a friendly side competition on like who can throw the most breaking balls for strikes and things like that. And they debuted within like 6 weeks of each other, and you knew that this was going to be. These were now originally it was supposed to be like Espino, Williams, Bybee, but you knew Williams and Bybee were going to be like ushering in that new era of what you hoped was a great rotation. And we saw Williams make that leap last season. We saw Bybee make that leap the year before. Honestly, like even in his rookie year, when he finished second rookie of the year voting, Um, yeah, I feel like they're both. It makes sense that they are that similar. I think those numbers are probably fair. Um, it's a good like Bibby's kind of intriguing to me. I'm curious to see. Like he quietly had an incredible September. He had a 130 ERA quietly because everybody else in the rotation was really good too, and he had a frustrating few months leading up to that. And someone with his mentality and his, he doesn't hide his emotions on the mound or when reflecting on his outings, and I'm excited to see like what that means for a season following up the year he had, and Williams on the heels of a breakout season too. I there's still some mystery with these guys. I think there's still some potential for them to achieve, and I'll guess I'll say that those projections are true or fair or whatever. It's hard to project an ERA too. Like sometimes things can get fluky, but like I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't write off the fact that like both guys can get better. That's certainly in the cards. They're still pretty young.
Or just have the benefit of better luck. I mean, Gavin Williams had some pretty good luck in outperforming some metrics last year. What I think they got right is just those two being so close in their level of production. And Gavin Williams did get the production last year. He did prevent the runs far better than Tanner Bybee did, so give him the benefit of the doubt. No problem with that. But I have been saying, and I'm glad this backs me up on this and doesn't put me out on the island, that I think they were very, I won't say even close, but I think they were closer than a lot of people thought in their actual performance last year. It's just Gavin outperformed them, and Tanner, I think he got unlucky in a number of points throughout the year. But to see him rebound and pitch so extremely well in September certainly leaves him with a much better jumping off point for the entire offseason. Doesn't feel quite as yucky, but there's enough bad there for a guy that I don't question his drive to get better. Just gives him a little bit more gas in the tank, I think, throughout the winter to be better. Final two names are in the bullpen. Andrew Walters, I don't mention him. They have him at a 3.47 ERA, and he's the second lowest ERA. I'm not going to mention Emmanuel Clase of those projections within the bullpen. And obviously Walters could be a name to watch later in the year, coming back off of injury, significant losing that much time last year. It's kind of a wild card. I don't know what to expect, but it's good to see that the projections still like him. One that is interesting, and we'll leave with this, Franco Alaman is the third lowest at 3.58. And it really led me back down the path of looking at his season last year. What a really weird year at AAA, right? Because you look at the 7.85 ERA and you think, this is a guy that I thought was going to help the bullpen last year. He couldn't even get out of AAA. He was one of the worst AAA relievers in baseball last year. Okay, why did that happen? Well, the strikeouts were actually still really good. He walked a lot of people, so obviously command played an issue. 420 batting average on balls in play. Can we help this guy out a little bit? So that leads you to the path of looking at the FIP, which was 393. Not great, not like elite reliever territory, but 785 clearly doesn't tell the story for a guy that 2 years ago had a 199 ERA at AAA. Can this guy help? The projections say yes. Do you think they got that right?
Yeah, I think with him, the stuff is so good that absolutely that's possible. I looked at his strand rate, his left on base rate last season, 55%. And so it's basically like, oh, I walked this guy and he's probably going to score. But the year before it was, and these are tiny samples. You're talking 20, 30, 40 innings, but 75%. And it's no surprise his ERA was 199. So there are little things that, they trend one direction or another. Sometimes it's the pitcher's fault, sometimes it's not, and it can make a huge difference, especially at AAA, especially in a sample of 30 innings, right? So you're not putting too much stock into any one stat. You're more just looking at the stuff. Can you Can you refine it? Is there anything you can change in how you're approaching hitters? And more than anything, can you just avoid the self-inflicted damage? You can't be walking 6 guys per 9 innings. So yeah, like there's certainly a scenario where, and that's what I mean. Like the bullpen, I think why they've done such a nice job is they can get a look at like Connor Brogdon early, Peyton Pallette early, see where Colin Holderman is at, and figure out, like, give those guys a few months to prove themselves, right? And then you get to midseason, and you can see where everybody's at. Like, you know, is Sean Armstrong holding up okay? Did Holderman turn into a useful high leverage guy? Did some of these guys flame out? Are there injuries? Okay, come on in, Walters. Come on in, Alamon. Come on in, Espino. So they're in a good spot, and what I like is the 3 names I mentioned who are kind of the wild cards for later in the season. What's the common theme there? Awesome, pure stuff. So like, yeah, you need him to be healthy, and you're not going to ask too much from Espino and even Walters, who missed basically the entire season. You're not expecting him to pitch 70 times in the big leagues for you, but you know, those guys can bide their time now because you've built this major league depth, and then by the end of the season, the bullpen can be like far and away the team strength.
When you can miss bats like Alamon did last year with a ERA nearing 8, but still have a 89% percentile K rate, to get whiffs at a 92nd percentile rate and swinging strikes at a 91 percentile. Like, when you're missing that many bats,
it's a very little league profile. Like I had some years in like 5th grade maybe where
I know what you're saying.
everything was like a walk, a hit batter, or a strikeout. But
Wildly effective, I think, is what they would say. You don't know where it's going to go, so you better be prepared. It's either going to hit me in the melon or be right in the zone, and I got to swing hard in case I hit it. Yeah, not quite to that level, but get those walks under control a little bit, and a little better batting average on balls in play, and better luck on stranding your runners. That guy's, and not even better luck. Like, don't even have to exceed the luck. Can we just get back to league average luck? Then I think this guy could potentially help later in the year. I think you're right.
yeah, otherwise you're just left saying, oopsie.
Of course you did. You had to go there.